Welcome to IBC 2024. We're here at the Audinate booth in Hall 7, and I have a great session here with the panelists talking about production in the cloud and really looking at things from an audio first standpoint. But first, I want to give opportunity for my panelists to introduce themselves and also tell us a little bit about how you first interacted with Dante.
Hello, thank you. Hello everybody, my name is Henry Goodman. I'm the lead product development at Carrick Audio. We're launching some new products here at IBC, so please come to Hall 8 and have a look at the stand. When I first got involved with Audinate, many years ago actually, Carrick has made Audinate Dante type interfaces for a long time on our products. But in the most recent years, we've been focusing on cloud technologies, and Dante really has given us the opportunity to fit the piece of getting I/O in and out of our DSP engine. So that's where we've been focusing on over the last few years.
So hello, this is Andreas Lautenschläger. So it's like the lute player. From Netorium, I'm the technical director of Netorium. So we are a German-based application integrator, as we define ourselves. So what we do is really integrate solutions and provide solutions to our customers based on software, and we integrate these solutions really on a software basis. And we do this on-prem, we do this hybrid, and we do this in the cloud, as we are also AWS partner and also public for AWS, which is important for us because we are focusing mainly on Germany, Switzerland, and Austria, and there the public authorities a very big role. Regarding the first contact of Dante, so I'm wondering when that was.
It's been a long time now, I'm sure.
So it's a long time. It's a long time ago. I think it was together with one of the other partners we share, obviously, with WIS, and based on their Opus solution once. I think this is more than 10 years ago now. And the approach there was initially really something which today would be set up in the cloud. So the idea was really to provide a solution which is flexible, which can easily scale up and down, and we need a reliable audio protocol which can support these use cases best. And this is why when we came up at this time with the idea to base this on Dante, and we had some discussions also with these times. So this was the beginning of this. When we now look on what's going on today, so we are talking about the cloud discussions, and I think we will go a bit deeper on this later on. With Dante Connect, we really can make things happen quite easily, at least, which needs more. Which makes solutions now easier than more complex in the time before, so that we can easily go really with production into the cloud.
Hi everyone, my name is Noor Hassan. I am a worldwide partner solution architect with Amazon Web Services on AWS. Thank you for having me today. I work specifically with broadcast and sports partners, and my role is to enable them from a technical strategy standpoint on AWS and accelerate our partner solutions. And so I think we've been working with Dante for a couple of years now. First interaction was actually through the AWS Media and Entertainment Professional Services team, who started to work with the Dante team to bring the Audinate's components into the cloud, and then we started to work together, I think a year and a half ago or so, on the partner side of things. Obviously, Dante is very well known in the industry with our customers, so that part was not new. And I think for the past couple of years, we've been focusing a lot on the partnership side with Audinate, and then seeing how you're further integrating with our larger partner ecosystem. So I see some names out there like Waves and Viz and others.
Excellent. So, well, thank you so much. I think that one of the interesting things and what we should really start with is establishing why we're here. It's, of course, you hear all about moving things to the cloud, and well, what's the point? Is really a good question to start with. But I think we should probably establish a little bit of what an audio workflow is and the various things and the components. To date, at least has been told to me quite a bit, is that, well, we've been doing broadcast production in the cloud, especially on the video side, for quite some time, but when it comes to the audio component, a lot of times that has to ride alongside with whatever video protocol, or really it's the video first and then the A1s, the audio architects, those that are needing to do things in audio, even intercoms are kind of left with, well, here's just the signal pass or some of the things that we can work with. So I guess from each of your perspectives, what is important to think about audio even before we talk about cloud? But I guess two questions here. Let's establish a bit of a workflow, like kind of like the core components, and then maybe we can start to get into the complexities when we think about putting that into a virtualized space and something that's not in a piece of kit that's underneath the console or in the other part of the truck.
Maybe I should try and answer that. Well, audio is quite different to video. So our colleagues here have known that for a long time. One of the big challenges, of course, is that we're dealing with far more sources than you would in video. And that's a challenge. The other challenge is sort of the sampling rates that we're dealing with. 48 kHz sampling rates. It's very different from a video-based system. So although we're not dealing with such big bandwidths in audio, in fact it's minuscule compared with audio bandwidth, there are some complexities around things like sampling rates and frequency rates. Also, just from a workflow point of view, the audio side does tend to get quite complicated, especially when we're talking about the sort of things that cloud can help us with. So things like remote production, diversified geographically productions, trying to get all the signals in the right place at the right time, without having too much latency and delay for in-ear monitors and stuff like that, does make the audio piece quite complex.
Maybe, Andreas, if you can help us a little bit about what is the integration component when you come to that. So as an integrator, how do you approach some of those complexities? You just mentioned latency as well as varying sample rates and the just massive number of sources.
So the interesting thing is, especially when we talk about remote production topics, is that most of the projects we see, and we do some of those projects also at the moment, is that they started with a pure video workflow. And the idea was also from a customer perspective, first of all, we have to bring the video to the customer, to the end customer, and then we are fine. And then everybody noticed that there is, of course, something really missing. The other thing is that you have much more endpoints than in studio production. You have, for example, you have a stadium with different sources. You have maybe some voiceovers, but somewhere else in the world. So you may know that we do the European League of Football together with the guys at IBC and based on the AWS. And we have stadiums all over Europe, up to 7 virtual PCRs every weekend. And we have remote commentators also in Canada and the States and all of these locations. And there is a delay topic which comes along a little bit also with the question of the bandwidth, of course, but it's also a question of how you set up your system based on AWS, because you can really have a very fast network connections that you only have to use let's say the last mile to the home of the commentator at least. But then you can be very fast and very reliable within the network AWS provides. But if you don't care about all of these topics and the possibilities you have, then you lose really time and you add additional latency and all of this stuff. This is why we, of course, for the next seasons will completely redesign the audio workflows there. Especially also to get more than only some atmosphere from the studios, to get really the emotions from the studios, because this is not transported by the video. So the emotion in the stadium is transported by the audio. And on the other hand, to have the commentators in the best quality and in time also on the video. And one point in addition, because this is something which is very interesting for us and very important to have the possibility to work very close also with the engineers from AWS to bring these things really together. So we have trained people, of course, we have some experience, but we can work very close together with the colleagues of AWS to really optimize those bits and pieces on the audio workflow.
I would say that today there's a lot of the complaint. You're talking about latency and the concern of, well, how do I just move my meter and my signal path? A lot of that can be set up, but unfortunately it's in that it depends is the real answer, so you have to take a look into things. But I think that what I'd like to get from Nord, from your perspective, is that at the cloud level, the AWS level, you're working with all the vendors and doing different things. And as you mentioned, we started working about a year and a half ago. And well, let's be fair, you already had broadcasts happening in the cloud in AWS. So what was the pull from your perspective or the draw for the audio side? Like, why was it important for your professional services team to start talking with you about finding and expanding in the audio space when really it was happening? But do you have a take on that?
Yeah, sure. But first, I would like to add to what the gentleman were talking about relative to the patterns, because it does tie into the answer, which is relative to audio workflows. There's a couple of areas that stay important. One is the operational familiarity. So regardless where the workflow is, right? Operators want to work with interfaces that they know, they're used to, and it shouldn't matter to them where the back end lives. So that is always something we need to take into account. And then the other part is interoperability. It's easier said than done. I'm sure everyone here knows about that, right? But fostering this environment to enable interoperability is a huge part of making audio workflows successful. And so to the other part, I think it's been mentioned earlier that audio seems to somehow in the broadcast domain follow video in the sense of maturity, but it is so key, it is so critical. You cannot have a true broadcast without audio, right? And so it was a matter of, okay, yes, maybe some of the broadcast workflows had been focusing more on how do we establish the video workflow, how do we get that going, but then very soon after it's like, okay, we need to focus on the audio now, and accelerate and move and make sure that interoperability is there, integration is available. We're obviously working with trusted partners who are professionals in this space. As a partner, this is your superpower. We are enablers, right? And so the idea is how do we move this as quickly as possible so that it's a complete work, because without audio it's not.
I may want to add one thing, because you mentioned this. I think this is very important. It's the interoperability. It's a complicated word for a German. You know what I mean. Compared to the old on-premise world, I don't know if it's really old, but to the on-premise world, what we did in the past is where we had always challenges with integration and so on and so on. When we go one step back and ask why we go to the cloud, so what is the reason to do that? There are several reasons to do, but one of the major reasons I think is really and it's said 100,000 times, it's the flexibility. But what does that mean? It means that I can develop a platform during I'm producing. So I'm working on that on a weekend. I do some changes afterwards. I go back next week and I can develop further in really small steps. And I can enhance this platform further and further. And this is only possible when I really can rely on standards, which can be real hard paper standards or something the industry agrees on to say, okay, that's the standard. On one hand, and on the other hand, then I can do something like what we know from software development really is something like to go into a CI/CD workflow also from the development of the platform. And this is I think really where one of the reasons is to go that route, to do the remote production beside of many other things.
Everything to add?
Well, how long have you got?
Hold on, we can talk about this all day. I just had to give you an opportunity, but I do have a question from, I guess, from the Calric standpoint. It's just like you've released a product now that is cloud capable, here at the show. But what was the draw? I mean, from those of us that work in product, we're doing that because we see a need. We have requests. So like, what was the draw from your customer base? Is it, you mentioned distributed production earlier, but it's more than just like letting your operators stay at home, or maybe not take that train or that flight.
I think you're right. It's much wider than that. I like to think of it as resource agility. And I'm not just talking about hardware resources or surfaces or PCs sat anywhere. It's as much about workflow agility and probably where the biggest cost saving is people. So it's about being able to utilize your existing resources in ways to generate more content, more niche content we were talking about earlier, but in ways where you are much more efficient with the people resources that you've got, so you don't have to move people around the world. So we have customers where they're really starting to take advantage of this technology, where you have you break that traditional OB model, and you have host facilities. Some people call them hub centres, where you're doing all the mixing from there, and your OB trucks are completely changing in terms of their character and what they are, and becoming much smaller, actually much greener, and you're not having to transport people from across the country or across the globe. You can get them locally, hopefully close to their home, actually in an audio environment which is nice to listen to, which in most trucks that doesn't happen. So hopefully the quality will improve as well. So it's all about that resource agility in the widest sense, in my view.
Indeed, I don't need to spend any more time in the back of a truck with a broken AC. That's stuffy and just you're buzzing around. But from the standpoint you're mentioning that there's people, there's a new way of thinking about logistics as you're moving around, but we've worked on some projects where, frankly, they just couldn't happen if you didn't have a scalable and a dynamic flexibility resource, whether that's delivering replays from earlier in the season that you just didn't have the space and the replay and the disk space that would either be in the truck or analytics or being able to deliver out to new audience paths. What's your take on some of those capabilities? I think that really comes around only because you're in a dynamic and fluid space like Amazon.
Yeah, so 100%. We are seeing these patterns. So customers want to do more with less. So they want to do more production. In fact, one of the things that we hear from customers is that we have more content that we can produce. One of the prohibitors of this is cost, but that cost goes down to a multitude of things. So it's the on-premises data centers, maybe things end of life, humans bringing them physically into locations. And I think we learned a lot from COVID, where the new norm is to have operators working at home. Again, they have the services they're familiar with, like Calrec, right? But then they don't care where the production is happening, and they shouldn't, as long as the experience remains the same, right? And so by moving content to the cloud, one of the biggest things that we see is that now you can bring tools to the content versus move the content to where the tools are in a desperate way, right? So now our customers can establish, let's say, control rooms more quickly. They can support more events simultaneously. They can bring down the infrastructure when they don't need it, and this is very powerful from a cost-saving and agility standpoint. And now, to your point, they can do more with that content, and I'm sure we'll get into it relative to localization or trying out, let's say, different regions very quickly, even if they don't like the outcome, but now they can scale down and they can say, hey, we're going to move into a new experiment, and that's 100% applicable for audio distribution and contribution and processing.
So on that, if I could throw this next question over to you, Nora, or start here, is that, well, how does someone get started? Like you mentioned, and I think this is a really insightful thing, is that from an operator standpoint, they should not care about the back end. Like it's a distraction, right? They should be telling the story, they should be working, creating the content. So if you're a technology manager, or an engineering manager in broadcasting, like how do I get started? How do I start moving in a direction that really doesn't impact our operators? Now, of course, from the operator standpoint, we're extending using Dante Connect. You already have Dante in your ear, in your get. Now we're moving in the cloud, but there's obviously a cloud component. So what would your advice be to say, all right, I need to get proficiency? Where do I start?
Let's have a conversation. That's how we start, right? And I think the conversation is three-way. It is the customer, first and foremost. It is our partners, and then AWS, right? Because what we want to hear from the customer is like, okay, yes, proficiency, what does that actually mean? Who are the teams that you want to engage? Because then we define personas. An operator, for them, doesn't matter. I love my Calrec, surface. I want to keep using it. That's fantastic. Then you talk to the broadcast engineer, right? Okay, how familiar are you with the back end? What matters to you? How can we enable? How can we train? And then from a partner perspective, it's like, you are familiar with these partners like Dante and obviously Calrec. Okay, so how do we bring your flow to the cloud, whether it's pure cloud or hybrid? I feel hybrid is remaining, it's strong because you're going to have talent on the ground, naturally speaking, right? But how do you have that seamless, and how do you get them to this go-to-market or to value as quickly as possible? And I feel a very key aspect is our partners who are integrators, because again, depending on the persona of the customer, are they a builder or are they a buyer or somewhere in between? right? Many customers in the space are buyers. So yes, we love this solution, but we really need help to move quickly and do the integration part. And that's why I say it's a three-way conversation.
Excellent, thank you. And Andreas, if I can have you kind of extend on that a little bit, is that a lot of times when you start moving into just software and software-based solutions, it's like, well, hey, give me the installer. I mean, I actually did this question at Dante. It's like, well, where's the installer? I just want to download this and get going. And it's kind of like, well, we might be working with software. We might have modules that exist in the virtual space, but there's still multiple parties involved, and there's an integration component. But you have a comment that.
So there is still a lot of integration tasks to do, and there's still also some integration, and there are also still some, let's say, dead-end roads where you have to find a way to go further and overcome these borders which are still existing and which are ever exist also in the past. But now, since you can do this on a software basis, it's most of the time much easier to overcome these borders. You can do this much quicker, and if this is not a way, let's say the first choice is not possible, you can easily find ways around to achieve the same goal at the end. So it makes things much quicker. But there is also something I want to add, because this is also very important, I guess, from what you said. There are content creators out there which are exactly this in the best manner. So they are content creators. There are no IT guys. There are no architects. They really don't care about the back end, but they want to do so we have also discussions about television magazines, so traditional studio production right now more and more. But they have a really idea how to design these shows. They know about the content and what they want to transport to the audience, but they don't care about the technology. And this really changes our role a bit. So, because in the past we came in, we did some integration, there was a solution at the end, and the customer worked with it until he dies. After 100 years or so. Now they come with these requirements based on their idea the end product should look like. And of course they want to spend as less money as they can, of course. Sometimes the budgets are really, really small. But there is still also different reasons why to produce this content. And what we learn now is that also our role is changing to something which brings the integration part with it. This is also yes, some parts of a managed service without being really a managed service, but we have so we had some elections to give you another example, not only focusing on this ELF thing. Some elections in Germany, same thing. We have engineers really in the background looking at the facility and the system and the back end, just to make sure that everything works as it should. But you don't need that huge this huge engine in the background. There are just one or two people taking care of that everything's running. They set up the stuff a few hours before the show starts, everything's fine. Then they hand over to the operators. They do their job on the content, and then we throw the stuff away. And 2 weeks later, we push this up again, and we keep on going from there. So so we call this operational service. So this is also something in between. It's not a managed service, but it's much closer to the operators, but just providing them their tools which they need to create the content.
So, Henry, to that point, and from the Calrex perspective, what you have a lot of moving parts, a lot of different things going on with the distribution of the operators, and how is CalReg providing, or I guess maintaining that innovation to meet those needs with these environments that we're going with, and other things. How to make sure that those that are used to the CalReg workflows, how do you bring them into being able to do more with what either they already have, or with that next investment into virtualization and into software?
Well, one of the things that we're doing here at the show actually is we're launching some new control mechanisms that allow you to freely control from the surface DSP processing, whether that's on-prem hardware processing, traditional FPGA processing, or in cloud processing, and to bring that processing onto our surface in front of you, no matter where it is. We call it True Control version 2, and that's the whole premise behind that. You as an operator can sit in a hybrid world, as you said, using some local processing, some cloud processing, or even processing in other resources that you've got around your facilities. So that's one thing that we're doing to achieve that. And obviously our Impulse V Cloud solution is part of that family of control.
That's fantastic. So really you have opportunity to, if I hear you correctly, it's about telling the story and giving the flexibility, which is really the whole reason why we're having this conversation. Because we're not just making into software virtualization just for the fun of it, right? There's a real purpose and a real desire, which fundamentally I would argue is about the flexibility of the workflows, being able to access your content when you need it, and fundamentally getting to those that consume it wherever they happen to be.
Absolutely. And I think it's just like when Noor, you talked earlier about the impact that COVID had on production and how we do it, and the remote side of what people are now very familiar with. When we first started with that, we first started with remote production actually before COVID, and it was accelerated through the COVID situation. And we're now in a situation where broadcasters and our customers are working with remote production in ways we never dreamt of when we sat down and we envisaged what it was. And the same is going to happen with cloud. It's a learning experience for all of us. We're part of this. The broadcasters, our customers, our partners, system integrators, we're all learning about how our workflows, our traditional workflows are going to change so that we can generate more content. We can feed the demand that the broadcasters have.
Well, I'd say as we start to do wrap up here, like what are the other things that you find exciting about that maybe we're coming down the road? What do you see is a bit of the direction that we're heading here? So obviously you have a new product out here. I'll start with you, Henry. You have a new product at the show. You have new fantastic workflows that we'll be able to see from the user base. But from your perspective, where is this headed? Like what direction should people be looking at?
Well, I think one of the big questions that people currently have, and you're going to help us with this sort of stuff, is the deployment side of it and the orchestrated deployment. Because from our point of view as CalReg, we make the audio mixing piece, but we need the connectivity that we get from audio. We need a vision mixer. We need the whole gambit of software packages that you have to run in the cloud. And just like in the baseband world, they're all from different partners, they're from different companies, and that's the way it is. So we're looking to system integrators, we're looking to people that provide software to orchestrate that deployment in a way that we can realise the dream of what cloud actually is going to give us in the future.
I think we did some sort of rule industry, some steps in that direction, and many of those initiatives help to go that way. The picture I try to draw with the CI/CD pipelines and all of this stuff, this involves, of course, the orchestration and the existence of the interfaces and all of this stuff. This is coming more and more, but yes, on the, let's say, on the short-term agenda, that's the next step we have to do. So there is much too much manual intervention we have to do right now. So we are not really, we don't operate really in an automated way right now. It looks a little bit automated partly, but it is not there now. So this is on a short-term perspective, this is I think the next step. On the long-term perspective, I think we will have hybrid infrastructures for the, so my estimation is for the next 10 years or so, as long as we have real humans running on the playground, as long as we have real cameras and real humans standing in the studio, as long we will have hybrid infrastructures, of course. But when we talk about these flexibility topics, we didn't have, because I think we can talk the whole day and maybe tomorrow as well. So there are security aspects we have to take care of, which are much easier in the cloud. And we have some responsibilities on both sides, and this is also something we have to take care of from time to time. This is maybe the middleweight perspective. We have to take care more of the security perspective, also on the application and the protocol side, because we have a nice and secure platform in the cloud, which is much more secure than we ever can build on the ground for ourselves. But this has also requirements on what we do on these platforms, and as long as we open the doors there, the platform itself can be safe as it will, it's useless. So this is something, and then we have on the long perspective really this hybrid solutions where we take about security and those things as well.
I can agree more on everything you said, specifically on the automation side. So far, we are now beyond trying to prove that broadcast works in the cloud. It works. And so the idea now is, okay, how do we optimize deployment? How do we leverage DevOps best practices? How do we leverage CI/CD pipelines to make it faster, to make it more agile, to deploy systems, small scale, large scale? Henry was talking about multiple components, which makes a lot of sense. How do you give that flexibility to customers where it's not taking weeks, let's say, to deploy a system, just move really quickly? So definitely that's one of the trends. The other one is the observability, which is having that visibility into the system at the different layers. So the physical layer, meaning the infrastructure, so referencing the cloud infrastructure. Then you want to look at the application components and how much visibility you have there. How are you then monitoring content itself? So audio monitoring, audio QC, and then from the application layer, what does that mean from quality of service for clients interacting with it, right? So essentially observability at all these layers. And I think from a future standpoint, new technology, so kind of going back to the earlier point of you want to bring tools to the content. That's how you really unlock some of the powers of the cloud. And so thinking of trends relative to machine learning and AI and even generative AI from different lenses. One, from a tooling standpoint that really helps enable workflows faster and more efficient, right? So even at a developer level, but then you have that from an audio workflow standpoint. How can we, let's say, leverage audio fingerprints and have a database where you can register and index all these fingerprints, and now I can, let's say, identify audio genres more quickly for radio applications, or how can I quickly fix my audio bits in a compressed domain, such as I'm normalizing for downstream consumption. Right? There's so many use cases in machine learning, like audio translation. How can I quickly spin up audio in a different language potentially, right? Things like that. So using technologies like AI, ML, generative AI at various levels.
That's fantastic. So really, in bringing that all back, it's like, I mean, there's some buzzwords that all of us are using different things, but the reality is that there really are tools that are available to help to assist to both create the content, tell the story, and deliver that out, more content, more places. So here in the wrap-up, like, where can people find more information about what we've been talking about from each of your perspectives? So, Nora, let's start with you. Like, where would you point people? You said before, let's have a conversation.
Yes, so if you are watching us and you are at IBC, please talk to us at our booths. We are in Hall 5, and we'd love to have an in-person conversation. If not, we encourage you to look at the demos that we have at IBC, which we are making available through our website. So if you visit our website and look for our IBC demos, which focus a lot on all areas of media and entertainment, you can learn what we're doing relative to these particular areas. And then, from there, please reach out and we can talk. Training and enablement is available, various levels. So it depends on what you're trying to get out of this, training, but we can definitely help navigate what makes sense.
So of course also we have a booth, no it's not of course, but we have also a booth in Hall 7A 59, and we are available there. But I just want to underline what you already said. So training is a major point. So there is a need for the understanding on the certain level where people are, how, for example, AWS is working, how these things come together, and there are some aspects which are really important to understand. It's not complicated, but once you understood it, it makes your life much easier. And the other thing is really so we are all in this transition phase. So we are all on the way to somewhere. There is nobody in the business standing beside looking at what happens. So we are all on this way. So we should definitely use every platform we have, and IBC is one of those. AWS summits are one of those, which are very great for exchanging ideas. There are some other places to meet where I think we should really exchange more ideas, more concepts, more experience on our way. Which went wrong, what is good, what worked, what did not work. So this helps us, all of us in the industry, to go forward.
Yeah, I would echo those sentiments. I would say, especially for the AWS situation, there's a lot of good training material on the AWS. In fact, that's pretty much where I started with cloud. And I'm giving that advice to certainly a number of our partners in terms of just understanding the terminology, the language that people are using. Cloud means different things to different people, just calling it cloud. So I think it's just spending a bit of time doing some reading, some research, looking at the AWS stack, talking to people. But I would like to add the comment that many people come to talk to me about, yes, I need to understand what the cloud is, I need to get into the cloud. But just like in the broadband world or in the IP world, have something that we want to do with it. It's no point just deciding to get into the cloud unless you've got a requirement and something that you know, a production or an environment, a goal that you have out of it. Because just sitting around learning about it for learning's sake, that's not going to happen.
Excellent. And of course, we thank you all. I want to give sincere gratitude to your time and efforts. Of course, here at Audinate, in our booth, we have a Dante Connect demo where we're showing in some fashion integration well, all the things that we talked about today, from being able to set up in automation to devices running currently in the Frankfurt zone in AWS, but we happen to be here in Amsterdam. Right from the booth, and then of course excited about our new partners and expanding out that ecosystem with Calrex's new product announcement. So if you're not here at the show, you can get more information about, of course, Dante and what Dante Connect is doing at getdanteconnect.com. But the thing I'll point out, just to wrap this and hopefully not put too fine a point on it, we are moving Dante just in the cloud. So if you know and understand Dante, you are a significant way there already. It's really about adding on and extending the workloads you already have. Going back to the operator and the architect, really, it shouldn't matter what the back end is. So, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you all have a wonderful show. And for those of us who are watching and listening at home, thank you so much. We'll see you on the next event.